You know what?
Hey, yo.
You know what?
Yo, you know what's funny, though?
We are not doing this today.
Yeah,
You know what's really funny about that shit?
What?
Like, Anderson .Paak be wearing them hats that Dave Chappelle used to wear when he first got his show and shit.
Show, yeah.
He be dressing just like that, bro.
That's what she was saying. And I was just like, she was like, was they doing a...
Not to say that every one of y'all look the same.
What-
That's not what I was trying to
Who's
say.
y'all? No.
Hey, go. No, he gonna keep digging deeper and deeper on shit.
Mimi's gonna have to use this book of knowledge for multi-use today. Multi-use. Welcome, everybody.
Yes.
To the Two Guys and a Girl podcast, also known as Let's Bash Mimi today.
I didn't want to bash you.
I am your host, Mimi. To my left, we have the esteemed Wally B. And to my right, we have the nonsense maker, Big J.
Damn.
Hi, how you guys doing?
Yeah.
Gotta love the setup today.
Yes.
Like, really.
This is fun.
Today's going to be big, comfy couch type feels today.
Yeah.
So we're very excited. We're very excited.
It
New
doesn't have...
mics.
It doesn't have enough accessories for Mimi though. She's like, you need to like.
Don't be mad at Mimi just because she knows how to
She's
decorate
like
a room.
she's like the revolution will be accessorized.
Any of our lady followers who will be watching this YouTube episode will notice there is no throw blankie and there are no throw pillows upon this couch. That's all I'm saying.
Like if you got like a futon style couch with a metal frame, you gotta cover that joint up, yo.
You need a blankie. Yeah. I'm gonna get you a blankie. That's what you're getting for Christmas.
Okay.
You're gonna get a throw blankie and pillows.
You get one of them nice weighted joints, you know, for the anxiety and shit. It's a double-edged, like take two birds with one stone.
They're snuggly. They're great.
I will entertain it because it looks like this is going to be the new setup, so that makes sense to...
Or something like it.
Yeah, because actually I like this better than sitting in the chair.
This is,
I'm
feeling good right
now. And why are we like two yoga teachers sitting Indian style?
I don't know. I guess so.
But I naturally sit Indian style.
I was about to say, I know you're going to sit Indian style this whole episode, and you know all the jokes that's coming your way once our boys see this drink.
Yeah, but then there's literally a video of me sitting Indian style. Everybody, why are you sitting Indian style?
No, there's a picture of you I have. It's the most embarrassing shit ever. Because first off, you got on this sleeveless shirt, right? It's like one of them, not a beater, but like one of them wide strap muscle joints, and it's like, fits. And you sitting in my mom's living room, and she used to have a dining table like that with the high chairs on it. And one of them chairs was in the living room for some reason. We all in there watching TV, and you sitting in that chair, regular width like that, Indian style, just on top of that drink up in the air. I gotta find that picture.
You probably look like you're floating.
No,
yeah,
nothing's worse than that.
Like one of those Buddhist monks that can just like raise themselves up.
Nothing's worse than that Lafayette picture I have. You've seen it, Mimi.
The Lafayette picture.
The one where I have like the Aunt Jemima head wrap on with like the.
I love that picture.
Like, there's nothing worse than that. Like that was a good drunken night.
That picture. If any of y'all out there watch True Blood, that gives me La La vibes.
Yeah.
It gives me that picture of seeing him gives me La La vibes. If any of you know True Blood, you know who La La is, and that's the vibes
remember
that
that
picture
scene
gives me.
when that dude in a restaurant was like, I don't like AIDS on my burger.
That was one of the best
He's gonna
scenes
eat
ever.
it how I serve it.
No, I literally in this picture, Wally, I have like a chain on with earrings, an Aunt Jemima head wrap, and a woman's blouse, orange blouse on.
Gorgeous.
Why though?
And it was supposed to be a Halloween party, and then it was one, but then drinks happened.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fine.
And fun took place. Yeah. So yeah.
Okay.
Well, we've got a great show for you guys today. We're moving on. We don't want to be. You know what? That's you should be for next week.
We're moving on. So, what would you guys like to first start talking about?
The fact that you're gonna ruin the entire vibe of this entire show next week, and I can already feel it.
No, he's not, and I'm guaranteeing it.
Okay.
Trust me on this. Trust
All right.
me. I got plan B's and C's and D's. We've got plans.
I have no
Don't
idea.
worry.
This is weird. So, what are we guys doing? What are we doing for this episode?
Well, all right. So let's start off with something kind of big and something kind of heavy hitting that we've actually sat on this for probably a week or so now. But Dave Chappelle and his most recent Netflix special, which has raised quite controversy within the LGBTQ community, and so I watched it the other day. I don't know. Like, first of all, I'm even like with the rest of Dave Chappelle's stuff. I've never been a huge fan of his brand of comedy. Like, I've never really found him like funny. So I guess for me going into it, I wasn't expecting it to be like, oh, this is funny, because I don't really find Dave Chappelle, his brand of comedy, to be funny anyway. But I mean, I watched it and there was some stuff where I was like, ooh, he's pushing the envelope. But I did notice throughout the show, he said, I'm going in all the way. I'm taking this all the way. And so I guess, I don't know, maybe that was his way of saying, I'm going to stir the pot. I'm going to say some stuff that's going to piss people off, but it's purposeful and it's got a reason, and I'm committed to it, and here it is. But at the end of the show, I don't know. I didn't necessarily find it funny, but I also didn't find it outrageously offensive. And the more I thought about that, for me being obviously a straight hetero person, not of the transgender community or of any part of the LGBTQ community, really, I don't know whether if I was offended or not offended, it wouldn't have mattered, because being trans, being gay, being any of the alphabet mafia, that's not my experience. So whether I felt a way about his comedy or not, I don't know if I'm allowed to have an opinion about how I thought he approached the subject, but from the outside looking in, I didn't find that to be any more offensive than some of the other things that he's done over the years that have been, not necessarily shock value, but he's out there trying to make like a point with his comedy, and it's pissed a lot of people off over the years. So I don't really know if I would have considered this any different than his previous specials and his other shows and stuff.
I would. Like, my position on it is that, first off, I have not watched it.
Oh.
At all.
Oh.
I might watch it at some point later on, like next year or some shit. But the outrage around it, like, pushed me away from even wanting to go check it out, especially because of the last one that he did, which was like, he made a lot of jokes that he did going on trans people. Again, I mean, in the one before this. And I had to turn it off. You know what I'm saying? Like, I love Dave Chappelle, yo. Like, he's very important comedian, very good. But there comes a point where you cross a line that you can't really recover from easily. You know what I mean? And the fact that the outrage was what it was, and then all the news articles reporting on it told you exactly what the really, really heinous, or not heinous, really bad jokes were.
Yeah.
I haven't been interested just because of that. Like, I know the point he's making, which is very, very valid, but as one of my favorite television characters ever, Detective Jake Peralta once said, stuff can be two things, right? Mm-hmm. I think that was part of his point, and he knew that the way he was going to go about it was going to cause all this outrage.
Yeah.
And it was his decision to go ahead and do it anyway, so he's got to face the consequences.
Yeah, and he even said at the beginning of the special, he's like, this is going to be my last Netflix special for a very long time.
Yeah.
And he's like, and I'm going to be doing this show very purposefully before I step away from it. So I guess he's got to be commended for his honesty. At least he was upfront about, I'm going to piss you off, perhaps, and I'm committed to it.
I just can't get on board with any of that stuff right now, because I don't know. I know how I feel when somebody goes on and makes a general comment about black men. You know what I mean? the stereotypes, the microaggressions, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
In my head, like, I know how that feels to me. So, like, if somebody else is being berated for something that, like, they just are, and people are that angry about it, like, that says something almost enough for me.
Yeah. It was the outrage for me, other than doing the research for the show to be able to talk about it. Like, the outrage is what piqued my curiosity.
Yeah, exactly.
For me to watch it, because it's like, well, you know, what did he specifically say? Like, what did he say that made people so enraged?
Like, I guess, you know, when I saw the last few, you know, he's done like 4 or 5 for Netflix now.
He's done 6 altogether. So this was because he had a six special $50 million deal.
That was 6 specials. Okay, so the last one I didn't finish. The one before that I watched, and like the common theme with, you know, social commentary comedians is that, like, yeah, they're going to push envelopes and piss somebody off. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But from the stuff that I do know about his stand-up, he was really giving me, like, I always side-eye people that end up looking like racist whites when they say stuff. You know what I mean? Like, if you can plug in any of those statements that white people used to make about colored folks back in the 50s and 60s, like, I don't want to see them on my TV. They're fine. I just don't want to be around it. I should be able to decide whether or not I want to live in an all-white community or even have to deal with black people at all. And anytime you can take any of those kind of statements and plug in something else different that means the same thing, like Dave Chappelle was telling a story about, like, the trans woman who, like, what did he, like, I forget what he said. He, like, made a joke and the trans woman reached out to him or something like that.
Well,
what was that
so in this
story?
In this special, at least, he specifically was talking about, like, two different people. He was referencing one person, one transgendered woman at the beginning of the show, and then he ended up talking about another transgendered woman. Her name was Daphne, the woman who stood up for his comedy.
Right.
And because she did that, ultimately, like a few weeks after the show, that she actually opened for him for one of his shows.
Yeah.
And she then ended up, you know, making some tweets about, you know, showing support about, you know, what his message was trying to be. And she got dragged for a few weeks.
She's the one I was talking about.
And she ended up killing herself.
Yeah.
And he even talked about that, and he's like, you know, I don't know if it was specifically because she was getting dragged about defending me. I don't know if she had some other things going on at home. I don't know what the situation was outside of dealing specifically with me and my show. He's like, but she ultimately ended up taking her own life a few weeks after I saw her.
So to bring it back to, like, the point I was making with these statements and plugging and playing these certain terms, right? You know, I have black friends. I like black people. This is my friend here. I know him. How can I be racist? You know what I mean? Like, you know, there's obviously a lot more to that situation, but, like, that's the energy it gives. You know what I mean? Like, you have to know that, like, when you say this stuff in public, like, how people are going to react to it. You have to know that if you say, this trans person's my friend, she likes my jokes, like, the most obvious common reaction is going to be like, like, no. Like, we do that all the time to white people who are like, I got a black friend. Like, no, that doesn't mean you're not racist, yo. It just means you got somebody black around you.
Yeah, I don't think it's anybody's job to say what's offensive and what isn't. If people are saying they're offended, you know, that's just kind of then they're offended. Like, if I looked at the special and I was like, oh, I haven't heard any, like, I cringed a couple of times. And I love his comedy, like, you know, people who grew up in the early 2000s.
Exactly.
And that's me knowing his comedy. And also another thing that's funny about listening to his specials. Are you familiar with his writing buddy?
Neil,
yeah.
Yeah, I like Neil too.
Neil Brennan.
Yeah, Neil's the man.
I hear Neil Brennan in it.
Yeah.
In a way that's, I think, is really interesting, because when you know Neil Brennan's comedy, you know he's dark.
Did you see that stand-up he did with
the
dog?
Yeah. He's dark.
It was really good.
So, but that's when you look at the Chappelle show, you look at some of Dave Chappelle's stand-up, you can hear the influence. And I think that's just interesting how when people get upset and angry about things, it's like comedy is more of a collaborative thing. So you should just be just as angry at Neil because I hear Neil in there. I'm not excusing Dave. Dave is saying the jokes. Dave has written it, but be mad at all the authors of what's going on here because I don't want to let anybody off the hook if a joke made you feel a certain way because that's their big thing. They won't tell you who did what.
Yeah.
They're very particular about that.
Of course.
They don't want anybody getting more credit. Like when it comes down to sketches and all the rest of it, like they don't even, so. And that's how some people are. Like they have like little writing teams. I know Kevin Hart gets a lot of crap for it, but like that's just how. Who cares about who's chefing it?
Everybody,
if the food tastes good.
like most people in entertainment, do that. Like the people that are successful, especially the ones that come up independently, are successful because their team is tight.
Yeah, so I didn't begrudge that. I just thought I'm gonna attack it from two directions. So if people are going to be upset, you can't begrudge them for being upset.
Yeah.
Your ask are the things that I will be a little bit curious by because you're asking Dave Chappelle to apologize. If you know anything about Dave Chappelle, that's not an ask that he's going to ever do.
Yeah.
This is a guy who walked away from tons of money to go to Africa and just threw it all away. And like this is a very principled guy. Whether he's right or wrong, he stands on that. This is my craft. I'm not going to apologize for it. Here's what it is.
Right.
I've been doing this for the past 20 years. You know what you're signing up for. So he takes that approach.
I guess that's part of it because there's a lot of people like who just may not know nothing about Dave Chappelle at all.
And that's what that's the part where I think people need to. If you're going to be mad, you have to also understand who you're being mad at, and understand this is who he is.
He's been doing this shit forever.
Yeah.
And so you have to understand before you click, because I always say whenever you go on the internet, I don't know about like age restrictions, it's emotional acuity and level. I've said this on this podcast before, where you have to be emotionally able to handle what's going to be thrown at you.
Yeah.
And with Dave Chappelle, that votes doubly true. You have to be emotionally ready for what he's going to bring to the table, because if you look at the Chappelle show, that in a 2021 lens, some of those things are very
problematic.
Yes.
That's putting it nicely.
But he comes from that old school comedy of, you're never going to get the Wayans to apologize for anything they did on In Living Color. That's not how they do it.
Right.
Also, they were like, we want the special to be taken down. That was an unreasonable ask for one reason why I told you early on this week that it was like, they've already paid him $50 million. They're not in the business of paying people money to not, put stuff up.
Yeah.
Also, there's and the person, I don't remember the quote exactly, the person who represents the comedy division and all the rest of that was like, oh yeah, well, we respect the artists and blah, 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 the ability to put stuff out. I was like, well, part of what's going on here is, yes, that may be true, but it's less noble than that. You want the next Chappelle to come to you instead of Amazon, instead of Hulu, because if you start taking down Dave Chappelle stuff, it makes it look like when it gets hot, you're going to abandon the people that you're with.
Yep.
And that is not great for business. And you have other comedians that are on your platform that you don't want to piss off, and other creatives. If I'm Sandra Rhimes, if I'm Kenya Burris, they don't even have to agree.
Heavy hitters right there.
You don't have to agree with Chappelle what he said on this special. That's never mind. I'm a creative. I want the ability to say and do what I want. And now you're saying if it gets too hot, you're going to cut bait.
Yeah. See, there's the thing. Like up till now with creatives who like get in trouble by whoever for saying whatever that offends people, right? Mm-hmm. A lot of times, those people who actually like get canceled or taken out of stuff is because they were being like super, super vitriolic, almost to the point of like lying about certain stuff. You know what I mean? And that's like I haven't seen the stand up, of course, but I feel like that's one of the main like differences here with Chappelle and like a lot of these other people from the past or whatever that may have been in a similar situation. He's always been a social commentary, real life type of comedian. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Also, and
He doesn't usually miss with like the facts and stuff.
I think the part of the problem, the reason why, because like you said, if you watch the other one, he's saying the jokes are recycled. So if you watch this one, if you watch the other one, was like, I'm not watching any of this one, you'll get to that same point in this one.
Okay.
So it's the point. I think the part of the problem was it seems like he had an agenda in this one.
Oh yeah, 100%.
And
Yeah.
he did, but I don't think it's an agenda. And here's where I'll get off
I don't think it's a comedy type of thing to be doing.
Well, I'll get off the highway on saying it's an agenda of hate. I think that friend.
Oh yeah, no, not hate.
I think that friend that died affected him fundamentally.
Yeah.
I think yes, people use people of a minority community as a shield,
Yeah.
like you said. No arguments about that. But I do believe, because Dave also talks about people criticizing him for hating women and all the rest. There's a lot of complaints he had in that special.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I think that was really his friend.
Yeah.
I think that's
you
what
can tell the way he talks about her, it did hurt him very deeply. Her passing was just it really, you can tell on his face as he's talking about her. There is a sadness there that it's genuine and it is legit. Like
and hurt people
really
hurt
did.
people.
Yeah,
And I think that's what and I'm not saying he set out with that in goal, but the way his comedy came off and how his sort of doggedness on this made it feel as though, my friend died due to the thing that you guys this kind of backlash culture and me talking about this protected community. Meanwhile, he even makes this statement in the comedy. He's like, you guys wanted to cancel the baby for what he said.
Yeah.
And he's like, he killed someone and you guys weren't trying to do that.
Shit. No, that is 100% legitimate.
And like that to him, as somebody who stands on sort of principle in that way, bothered the hell out of him.
Yeah.
He's like, how are you going to condone one thing and say one thing is be okay with one, and then someone merely talking and saying their opinion, whether you like it or not, whether it's hate speech or whatever, someone died.
Yeah.
And he talks about it openly.
Right.
People are literally like, some of this stuff
Like,
is
you guys didn't even bat an eye.
Yeah, no, like,
eyelash.
part of this whole thing is to kind of like, I'm not saying it's like they set out with it to be a social experiment or anything, but one thing I can guarantee you they're keeping an eye on is how many people are like very loud about the bad parts and not about the like, you know, the girl killing herself because of cancel culture, basically. You know what I mean? That kind of stuff that he put in there. And like earlier I was like, stuff can be two things. I know one thing that he mentioned was that like I believe he said something like, I'm jealous of the movement. You know what I mean? Like y'all, like it's been a long drawn out battle, but at the point we're at now, like a lot of times y'all want something, you go get it. You know what I mean?
He did say
and
that.
like we jealous of that.
He's like, you guys have made such progress in a short amount of time.
Yeah. So like, you know, it's one of those things where like you really, if you're too angry while watching it about the stuff that you've heard before you even seen it, then like it would be really hard to retain those details. And I wonder if they're sitting back watching like, you know, how big each of the different like parts blows up on the internet and stuff like that.
I also thought it was interesting, the very last thing he said. He said, hey, listen, there's going to be, I'm not going to talk about the LGBTQ community anymore.
Yeah.
Until I think
I know we're all laughing
together.
Yeah.
Yep.
I thought as a comedian, it was very important for him to say that because that goes back to the principles in which he goes by. And he even says it in the special. If you really want to know who I hate rich, powerful white men. That's who I don't like. That's who I have the issue with.
Yeah.
And supposedly we're both fighting that same thing.
If you know Dave Chappelle's material, like you watch him, like we have all our lives and shit, you know that's always been the thing, right?
Yeah.
So and when he puts out a new special, I'm not talking about this one. This one's something different. But when he puts out a new special, he says some shit about some people, and people are getting mad. Like all of us are usually like, man, shut up. He telling the truth. You just mad because he talking about you. You know what I mean? That's usually how it is with comedians, especially people like Dave Chappelle. This situation, again, is obviously a little different, but he's still Dave Chappelle.
I still think
Same vibes.
That is true.
I think he took the loss of his friend, and I think he took that pain and he put it into a special. And because it's funny, during quarantine, and like I said, we can wrap the subject up. He did a special where he didn't actually tell a joke.
Nope, not one.
And he was up there and he was just talking and he was doing social. And I was like, this is fucking brilliant.
And that's how a lot of his like random sets be. Like when he'll pop up in at a random comedy club, get up at that jump and just talk for 3 hours, and it like be 20% jokes. And you walk away feeling like you saw something hilarious.
Yeah, or it was funny by ironically.
Yeah, exactly.
And I thought, that's why I was like, this isn't a person like anytime like I feel like Kevin Hart from beginning of his career till now is just somebody who I think is in such a lifestyle to where they don't have anything new to bring to the table.
Right.
That's my opinion.
You said he is at a point where he doesn't have anything new to bring, or isn't?
I don't think he's at. I think he's at a place where the people that like Chappelle would be talking about, he's not friends with. He lives in Ohio. He's not friends with these people.
Yeah. Definitely.
Kevin Hart
he separated himself on purpose.
Yeah, Kevin Hart is in that lifestyle. He's hanging out with these people.
Yeah.
That's what Eddie Murphy said. That's why he said, I had to stop doing comedy because I became friends with these people.
Yeah.
And it would be inappropriate for me to make fun of them. That's why he stepped away from the stage. Amongst the money and everything, he stepped away from the stage because he didn't feel like he could be Eddie because he was involved in all these things.
Yeah.
So then when it comes down to like Chappelle, I was like, I don't think he's talking about the LGBTQ community because he doesn't have anything else to bring to the table, because I saw that special during quarantine. So he does have other things he could say. This was, and I think for me, for somebody who appreciates his comedy, it was disappointing that I felt like there was an agenda through it. And I don't know if agenda and comedy go together.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, unfortunately, like there's what I read his agenda as is like you've already said all this stuff. LGBT community like obviously has problems, and they obviously advocate for the things they want and need, right? So do Black people. That has not like gone the same, because we're talking about a race of people and another group of people who includes a lot of whites. You know what I mean? Like that's just what happened. That's just what's been happening, and it sucks. But like you said, like it probably felt like he was driving towards that point the entire time. You know what I mean? And like with the stand up, like it ain't usually. I don't know. It makes
preachy.
it hard to take your eyes off the fact that that's what he's doing.
And it's preachy.
Yeah.
Because when you're mixing harsh jokes with preachy, I can see where people get offended.
Right.
Because you're not actually. Because if you're like, it's one thing to have callbacks. It's another thing to be kind of driving in a direction, and you guys need to look at this thing that I care the most about.
Yeah.
And that's why I said I feel like maybe if he looks back on it in 20 years, he'll probably say, my problem with it was I allowed my friend's death to really affect me, my art in that way. And maybe, and this is why I said sometimes when two sides have to come to the table, yeah, he doesn't have to apologize for what he said within his art form, but maybe his approach was off.
Yeah.
And I think but you have to allow him to get to that space.
He like went through some turmoil. You know what I'm saying? Like, aside from anything else he was probably going through, you know what I mean? Because he lived through the pandemic just like the rest of us. Yeah, it probably shook him a little more than it. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't.
Because watching the special, there were times where like how you said he was like driving toward a point. Like it felt like he was getting to a point where I was like, okay, I'm getting behind what you're saying. I'm getting behind what you're saying. And then he would deliver a line that would, in my opinion, almost like undercut everything of what he was just saying. Yeah. And I think for a lot of people, that's what hit them the hardest, is the fact that it felt like he would build up to a really poignant moment, and then it would take a nosedive.
And you know what? That's a classic Dave Chappelle stand-up device. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So like, if you don't know Dave Chappelle, of course you're gonna be pissed off at that.
Yeah.
But if you do know his material, even though the end might sound a little fucked up, isolated, like we get what you were doing. It was funny. We also know that like you don't really like.
That's the Chappelle show.
Yeah, like, for real, yeah.
That's the Chappelle
Like
show.
all them white people he made fun of on Chappelle's show, and Neil Brennan was his partner in crime that entire time. You know what I'm saying? Like,
And I hear Neil in like
Yeah,
there's
you just gotta
nothing
know
that
what
has changed in his
Yeah.
life. Like this is what he is, and that's and like I said, I think people just I can't tell people what to be offended by. I just wish if you felt strongly about it, asking Netflix to take it down and asking Dave to apologize, those two things were impossible to ask and never were going to happen.
No, never.
It was like, that's a losing battle if that's really what you fight
And
for.
I want to, and the last thing I'll say is, when you don't get those things, the apology and or getting it taken down, and you're like dead press on it, where people are walking out of Netflix meetings and all the rest of that. I'm going to be careful how I want to say this. You can put yourself in a position where, let's say the next big controversy happens. You don't want to be put in a position where someone can ignore you.
Yeah.
That when you press so hard for something and you don't get it.
If we know anything about business,
Yeah, and
if you try to like disrupt some shit and you don't have nothing behind, like if you just like yelling and stuff like that, all they're gonna do is make sure that whatever you did don't affect them going forward. Because again, it's a business. This is not like people we're talking about. We're talking about people that run this like created thing that's got to keep going based on all the numbers and data and everything else. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, you're right. Like you can't just, I don't know.
And the next person that gets caught up, well, Chappelle didn't have to apologize.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Why should I?
And see, that's where you don't. That's why I said sometimes you have to be careful about your ass and realize who you're dealing with. And if you do it, because like I said, there will be a time where somebody will go over the line, and they probably should apologize for it. But if they see, especially in businesses are cold and calculated,
like by design,
and they'll look at Netflix's stock didn't drop because of this. So why should we even demand our artists or whoever to apologize or anything, or even take it down or anything? So that's what I'm saying. You don't want to go too far in any movement where you undercut the movement. Because I feel like this happened a little bit with me too, where it was you go so far in the movement in this direction and you start to lose steam based off of where the agenda goes.
Like if we take a look at all this, one thing I was just thinking about is the fact that like earlier I was saying, it's the LGBTQ community. A lot of white folks, a lot of white folks who like are just getting to the point where they're able to like do this kind of stuff. Black people been doing this shit for like 40, 50 years, right? And it's been like varying degrees of us being able to speak up more and more and more and demand things more and more and more. But since it's been so long, we're also used to the fact that like people gonna talk shit about you and like ain't nothing you gonna do change it. You know what I mean? Like the society's gotta change.
Yeah.
And I think this might be a lot of people who like don't quite grasp that part of it yet, because they've never like, even if they had to like hide them true selves from other people, you're able to do that if you just kind of if you blend in, if you're considered standard. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, that standard debate is actually that's an interesting topic amongst itself, because who determines that and all the rest. That's interesting. So
shout out DJ Khaled.
the next topic, I was talking to Mimi about this early on this week. Jon Stewart has a new show out that's not a daily show, but it's more of a social commentary show, and he was talking about the burning pits that were going on in Iraq. I mean, anybody who's followed Jon knows he's been talking about this for a while, but this was interesting because he had somebody from the government to account for this. Yeah. Somebody that would actually be able to say, here's why we're not doing anything, here's why, here's the red tape that's involved, and all the rest of it. So Jon was asking him, so I just don't understand why if this data is here, why we're not doing anything to help these veterans who have been exposed to these toxic chemicals and
who are suffering and dying.
Yeah. Why are we not doing anything? Like, I'm just trying to get an understanding. I don't think this is right. The person says, I really don't give a damn what you think. And Jon Stewart replies, and this is a very good thing that an interviewer does. And like, he doesn't cower. So two things happen in this. Either the interviewer cowers or the interviewer then gets an ego about himself. He didn't either. He said, you shouldn't care what I think. You should care what the veterans think. And you should care about what the American people think about your lack of what people are doing for these veterans. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, that's genius.
Yeah.
That's Jon Stewart.
I was like, that was genius because to me it wasn't cowering. It wasn't someone push. Because normally people like this go on CNN, go on MSNBC, go on Fox News.
Berate the shit out of the reporter.
Or the person asking them any sort of tough question. Because I remember I saw this with Nancy Pelosi and Wolf Blitzer, where Wolf Blitzer dared to ask her a question she didn't like, and she like scoffed at him, like, "How dare you ask me this?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, the media and the people that they cover, it shouldn't be a disrespectful relationship, but it shouldn't be one where you kiss their ass and you give them softball. Like, you're accounted. Like,
you should be able to have challenging conversations and still be productive at the end of the day.
You're accountable to me. I am the American person paying your salary.
We've grown.
Yeah, this isn't kindergarten.
Yeah, like, you should be able to answer a question that may be slightly uncomfortable because it's an uncomfortable topic. People dying of these toxic chemicals, or people suffering due to these toxic chemicals that they were subjected to while in service, is something that needs to be accounted for. And I just thought it was strange that he was acting as if, why are you asking me these questions and when is it going to end? It's going to end when you actually do something. And Jon Stewart's like pleading with him, saying, hey, listen, tell me what data you need. Tell me what thing you need to push this over the, the research is out there. Why are you dragging your feet on this? What information can I give to you where it'll actually, you do something about it?
Yeah. I think this is one of those classic cases of, tell me you don't give a shit about, veterans without telling me you don't give a shit about veterans.
Yeah.
If the one thing that the government's really good at is not taking accountability unless it absolutely has to. And we've seen that not just with veterans, but we've seen that across the board with lots, like anything with environmental, business, the separation of church and state when it comes to like healthcare and things like that. Anytime the government is doing something and they feel like they can benefit from it or they can get away with it or they at least don't have to pay for it, they will not act on it unless they are backed into a corner. And even then, a lot of times, they've got to be in that corner for a minute before they're like, fine, we're not getting anywhere being in this corner. Let's just do something about it and move on.
Right.
And I think that's like a lot of issues, like with the burn pits, with the indigenous, issues with the Native Americans of not just the United States, but of Canada, Central and South America. Anytime a government doesn't have to do anything morally good or active, they won't.
Yeah.
Unless it's shoved in their face over and over and over again, and the people then become aware of it and get involved, and their opinions get involved, and then that's when the real change happens. Because if anything, the government just doesn't want to listen to people bitch and complain. It just keeps everybody happy and let's just keep going forward. So I think Jon Stewart's doing a good thing where he's like putting himself in a position where he's getting in front of these people and on these platforms where it's like, it's not just a niche thing I'm talking about. I'm now on like national news, and people across the country are listening to what I have to say, and they're listening to you saying, well, I don't have to answer that question. How dare you even ask me that question?
Yeah.
That's more telling than them going, oh, it's complicated and it's expensive and there's logistics and blah, blah, blah. For you to say, well, I'm not even going to bother asking that question because that's beneath me. That's far more telling than anything else.
So that shit is about ingrained into American culture as racism is. the capitalist like mindset. It was like this place was started that way.
I think that's for any big government.
Yeah, I mean,
Anywhere.
yeah. Well, I mean, like just the way this country in particular started. It was started in order to completely capitalize on this land that we found and shit. You know what I'm saying? So like that has continued up until now through the government. And like, yeah, you're right. Like we're talking about business a second ago, how like this, we're not talking about people. We're talking about keeping this thing going that has to keep going. Same shit.
Yeah.
Same shit.
I also think, and I don't want to conflate these two things because this was mainly a critique on the media not doing their job and not holding the people that are in powerful positions to account. But it makes me feel very weird about how the big kerfuffle about because I'm very certain things that I get passionate about. I can kind of be on my soapbox about, but you know how it was when the whole kneeling thing happened. You at work, and I was very
Yes.
and.
And I had opinions.
I had opinions, and I was very strong about and I remember me and another coworker going back and forth about yeah, you have a right to do it, but why you do? I'm like, no, this is a form of protest. They should be allowed to do this. I don't understand how this is getting conflated with the troops and all the rest of these things, right? And then now I'm listening to Jon Stewart talk about these burn pits, and I'm like, hold the hell up. So is it really about the troops? Or are we just blowing smoke? Or is this about making people, not just black people, any oppressed society compliant and just deal with the status quo as is?
Yes.
Because
that's always what it is.
Because if it's that, then this is bullshit, and I'm not rocking with it. But my whole thing is I want to always respect everyone's position. Mm-hmm. Even if I don't agree, I want to respect it.
Right.
And so I wanted
There's a difference between not agreeing and seeing that what this person is saying is bullshit based on all the stuff you already know.
But then I don't. But when someone's making an argument,
yeah,
they may or may not think that what they're saying is wrapped up in nonsense.
Oh yeah, that's usually the case.
Yeah.
That's
even whenever you know the person is not that. Yeah. So I was like, but then I'm like, well, these burning pits and what these troops are exposed to, and how my sister works for the VA, I know what those kind of what goes on there and the lack of funding and all the rest of that. I'm like, so do we really care?
No.
But is it? So then, if we really don't care, and that's unfortunate, and that says a lot about us as a country on large. Then what was the hullabaloo about someone taking a kneel during the anthem?
Racism!
Yeah, actually, and I'll even take that a step farther. It's about fetishizing veterans.
Yeah.
And using them as pawns when it's to, let's just stick with the government because that's just what they're linked with. When the government needs them to make a point, they are then set upon this pedestal, and we must care for them and do everything we can to support them and make their lives better. Until it gets to shit where it's like, oh, you mean actually I have to care about what happens to them because of what we expose them to, be it chemical, be it emotional, be it logistics. What do you mean I can't just put them on this pedestal and pretend that I care to make my point, but then when you are actually asking me to do something real and beneficial for them, I know, I can't get we don't have the funding, we don't have the manpower, it's complicated, and a lot of times their issues probably just aren't as bad as they're saying that it is. And it's probably, their cancer is probably caused from something else that they did, not having anything to do with us. It's weird, but it's probably what happened.
Look, I got an interesting timeline that I just kind of I pieced a couple things together in my head just now that happened a while ago, right? We're talking about the United States government and the NFL.
Yeah.
Two of the most capitalistic bodies of, organizations out there, right? Mm-hmm. Now, we're talking about military stuff and the kneeling. And part of the reason the kneeling was a problem is because the NFL would play the national anthem and have flyovers and the flag on the field and all that shit.
Very America.
And what a lot of people just didn't seem to catch is that they didn't always do that. You know what I'm saying? It started around 2009. The NFL started paying shitloads of money to these military groups, And that's how they ended up on the field doing the flyovers and all this stuff way, way, way more often than they were. We're talking millions and millions of dollars, right? Starting in 2009. Why is it 2009 important? It's because of who got elected the year before and who was running against him, right? Obama got elected. Obviously, there are a lot of people that didn't like that for, reasons that we all know about. But on the other side was John McCain and his running mate, Sarah Palin.
Yes.
Sarah Palin is the person responsible for bringing all these gun-toting, conspiracy theory spitting, all this craziness like that what used to be just out there. She was the representative for that. She brought it to the forefront, and those people love America.
She is
right?
crazy.
So yeah.
She is crazy.
I can only imagine that the head honchos of the NFL and also the head honchos in the government, which, by the way, these positions are coveted by people who crave power. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like, way more than likely, you're going to see people that have to have some kind of power under their belt going for these positions and end up in them. So, of course, they're going to play everybody to, boost everybody's image. The NFL gets its image boosted among, veterans and military folk. So does the government, because we're all putting on this show for you, right?
Yeah.
It's all... They're all just trying to capitalize. It's all capitalism. It's all about making money. So, to go back to the original point, no, they don't give a shit about anybody. No, we just need you to believe that living here is as good as we say it is, and we need everybody else to believe that too, so we can just keep on doing all the effed up stuff we're doing.
Yeah.
In closing, the one thing MLK, and he did a letter from in jail, and he talked about. He says he was essentially in the letter. He's I think it's the letter from Birmingham jail. He was saying he didn't have as big of an issue with people who are vehemently racist.
Yeah.
He wasn't really. He said he says I pray for those people, but at least I know where they stand, and at least I know what their position.
That's exactly how I feel. You can see it, and it makes it less dangerous to you.
But he said he was more outraged, and I think he was and white liberal has changed over time.
Yeah.
So I want to be clear in white liberal now compared
Very different.
Compared to now. So I don't want to confuse those 2 points. But he said he was more offended at the white liberal because he felt like the white liberal knew better and decided to do nothing, or paid lip service to it, but really didn't care about what was actually saw what was happening, but then didn't care.
Right.
And he was because he felt like the vehement racists at a point didn't know better. But he felt like the white liberal knew better and decided to bury their head in the sand.
These are the ones that are highly educated. These are the ones that read all the news from everywhere. These are the ones that know this stuff. They're able to piece different things from different places and oh, I can see what's happening here. You know what I mean?
So he found those people complicit.
Yes.
And that actually made him more upset than the vehemently racist person who's sick in their dogs, person who's calling him the N-word. He was more mad about the person who knew all these things were going on and didn't say or do or felt like, oh, it's not my place to say, or it's unfortunate, but such is life.
And see, that was the problem with John Gruden, because a lot of those black players who played in the NFL and under him, those guys felt like he was that white liberal. You know what I mean? And he completely betrayed that shit and showed that he don't give a fuck. So you see him doing that. How many other of these head coaches I've played for are the same exact way?
Right.
It gets you thinking.
Or the system, or even bigger than John. The system
it's definitely bigger than John.
Well, no, but I'm saying just even bigger than John.
The system
itself of that is that.
For me, at least, I think the players, speaking specifically about the black, and let's even lump in the closeted gay players.
The worst part about it is you have to lump in everybody, because one thing about the NFL is they obviously don't care about anybody, I'll keep using the standard word, but anybody off standard and shit. But they don't care about them motherfuckers either, because it's still money. You know what I'm saying?
So I think it's easy for the players at large to think, to kind of be okay with the fact that the NFL at large is a systemically, racist, bigoted entity. But when I find a coach, I find a team, I find fellow players that say I'm against these things, it's probably like a very I found a safe haven.
How could you not do that? This is your whole entire life. You have to exist in this shit. How could you not gravitate towards that?
And then you find what you think is a safe space, and you kind of go, okay, I have found somebody or somewhere that's different, that will get me, that will appreciate me.
That's why Randy Moss is crying on TV. That's why he was crying.
It's
that shit
gotta
hurt.
be. I couldn't even imagine how heart-wrenching it must be to then go, oh, so he was just full of shit this entire time.
Yeah. So that NFL, government, military, all about the money, all the goddamn time.
Or it cares about people until it doesn't care about people.
Or when it's useful to.
When it's useful.
And I think that's what John Stewart was ultimately pointing out very aggressively. Do we care about these veterans' lives or do we not?
No. The answer is quite obviously, for lots of different reasons, no.
I guess one last thing that what topic I want to get into is the one I was talking to you about yesterday, involving Alec Baldwin and the on that shooting on set.
Sad. That's so sad.
For those who don't know, Alec Baldwin was shooting a movie. I think it's called Rust.
Yes,
Rust. Yeah, Rust.
Yeah, and he was using a prop gun, and he shot it. It was supposed to have blanks in it, and he ended up striking two of the crew members. Yeah. One was fatally struck with the whatever was in
debris
or whatever was
shrapnel, whatever you want to call it.
And then someone else was just harmed.
Yeah.
And I'm of this thought process when it comes down to that. Is I'm not sure, and Wally, maybe you can, a little bit more about audio and production wise. I'm not sure why in 2021 with what you can do in post edit.
Dog, we're literally talking about that yesterday. Now, like, for real, why does it have to have anything close to a live round in it?
Yeah.
Why can't they make it look realistic in post-production?
Yeah.
And I think I missed what you were trying, because you were like, why do they have to have prop guns? Why do they and I think I was missing the point of, because I was like, well, because they have to pull the trigger to make it look like they're actually shooting a gun.
But I was like,
you were like, why can't they just put the sound in post-production? And I'm like, they can, but you still have to
Look, man.
You're right, they shouldn't have to have, even if it's blanks, if you're not actually intending to fire anything out of a prop gun, even if you're trying to just get some sparks at the end of it, you don't need to be putting anything in fake guns anymore.
I don't know the specifics of props on set in terms of weapons and stuff like that. But what I do know is that if anybody's ever played with a cap gun before, you used to put them little strips inside. I seem old as shit.
No.
But you put the little caps inside the thing. Yeah, true. And you pull the trigger and it makes this loud snap and little smoke comes out the front. You know what I mean? I know somebody that can invent something like that makes a little spark come out the front of the gun. You know what I mean? That part I don't understand, and it sucks because apparently what happened was they're about to start the scene. One of the PAs yells out, the prop is cold, the gun's cold. It's not loaded or anything, right? And that was it.
The biggest problem with this whole scenario is, for about a week up until this unfortunate event happened, the unionized crew that had been working on this set had started making a big stink about all of these different things during filming and things that were not being done correctly, that were not being done to safety specs, that were not being done to code. And literally the day of the incident, the unionized crew members and staff walked out because they were being ignored, they were being listened to, they were told to pack up their stuff, and they were like, we're leaving, and the production people were like, no, we're kicking you all out. And they were forcibly let out of the building. And then non-unionized staff and crew were brought in to finish production and filming. And it's during that time, once the unionized people left and the non-unionized workers came in, that's when it was this whole series for days and days of this isn't being done right. This isn't up to code. This isn't safe. And either the directors or the whole production crew were like, we just need to get the shit filmed. We just need to get it filmed. Quit bitching. We just need to get it filmed.
And to be clear about that, that's not uncommon.
Yeah,
Right.
On a film.
Unionized workers walk out all the time because of unsafe like work conditions.
Yeah, especially when it comes down to Hollywood and that kind of stuff. That unfortunately, that's not uncommon. Like there was a situation involved. I know whenever Deadpool 2 came out, there was a situation where one of the stunt people were ended up dying, and that halted production and stuff. Safety, like movie, we look at things like creating a movie or these things as being, oh yeah, it's fake, it's not real. Elements of it aren't real, but there are certain elements of a movie that in acting
Still very
that's
physical
very
profession.
physical,
There's a lot of
and
stuff.
you can be hurt.
There's a lot of stuff people do where like you're looking at it watching like, damn, I wonder how they did it, and they straight up just jumped off a building and shit.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like
Onto
that happens.
Those big puffy air things at the bottom of the building.
Or even people like like Jackie Chan
I was getting ready to say that, yeah.
do his own stunts. Or
Yeah.
Tom
he's
Cruise.
gotten hurt a lot.
Yeah,
Tom
yo.
Cruise.
Jackie Chan almost died a few times, yo. Like he.
Well, the last, I guess it was a Mission Impossible movie that Tom Cruise did.
Talking about when he's strapped to the side of the plane.
No. So the one where the preview was where he was literally jumping from one building to another.
Yeah.
So if you look at that preview, if you look at the very end of that clip, you can see him. He made it to the edge of the building, but you see like his right knee made it onto the ledge and like his hands were on the ledge, but his left leg was straight down and his foot was like up. It hit like the straight side of the building. He shattered his ankle because he mistimed the jump. He shattered his own ankle.
Yep.
Because he insists on doing his own stunts because he's Tom Cruise and he's got a height complex. I don't know, but
Yeah.
that's the thing. Like even though all the precautions were there, all the crew on set, like he still shattered his ankle.
These things are still inherently dangerous.
Yes.
To make great film or to make believable film,
Yeah.
you have to have a certain level of, where danger.
Yeah.
Yes.
By the way, we can't really like be standing mystical at all because
No.
he had double.
He's
double
he's
R
terrible.
word.
Yeah, definitely. But no, I think going back to the original point about like, you can literally make someone skinnier in post production. That you know what I mean? Like you can do so much stuff in post production. I don't understand the
You could go on YouTube and see like fan made or like independent, real low budget stuff made where they have guns
And
and
it's
like.
amazingly good stuff.
Some of them be amazingly good. I was gonna talk about the shit that looks crappy, but the fact that like they're doing it, you know what I mean, and like you can tell they're using like real old ass cameras or old computer to edit it, and just the quality ain't great. But like if that's the case, you can make that gunshot look better. And like I don't know, I feel like I don't know.
Yeah, it's just unfortunate because there have been several deaths before this. I guess not Jackie Chan.
Alec Baldwin.
No. Bruce Lee's son.
Yeah,
Oh, yes, Brandon Lee.
Brandon Lee.
That's
we
how I was like, I thought to say
day.
Jackie Chan. So I was like,
Wrong
wrong. Yeah.
No.
That's why I was like,
They
no.
don't all look alike now.
Yeah,
Come on.
I was
Keep
like,
up.
Yikes. No, but yeah, Bruce Lee's son. And then there was an incident in '84 where somebody had, like I said, had the prop gun, pulled the trigger to his head, cracked his skull.
Yep.
Because these things are still dangerous. And I don't think that people understand that anytime you have, and I was watching CNN, they say anytime you have anything where gas or anything comes out of a gun or that, that any type of projectile comes out, it is not safe.
No.
Yeah.
No.
You can't make it safe. When
Especially
it's
if it's an actual gun made to use as a prop.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
if it's got all the mechanisms inside,
Yeah. It's all
anything shooting out of that shit.
could kill.
It could be like somebody had M&Ms in their pocket and one got stuck in it. I know that probably wouldn't happen, but someone
Death
gets
by
stuck in the front of the gun. You say what?
Death by chocolate.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like that M&M could come at your ass full force.
What?
And fuck you up a little bit.
Yeah.
And then you'd be like, damn, I got shot by a piece of candy.
Like I got impaled by an M&M.
Yeah.
Yeah, because of the debris or whatever was. It may not even been where the first shot get anything. If the debris from the first shot didn't clear the chamber,
Right.
whatever comes out, like I said, that's why I said this stuff is inherently dangerous.
And that's the reason why there's this big disparity between, using only unionized workers compared to using non-unionized workers, because at least according to the report, the safety report afterwards, once all this shit happened, it was reported that that gun had been checked and had been cleared by one of the staff members.
Yeah.
It was apparently empty of anything. That's what they said. So clearly,
This was after the switch.
yeah.
Yeah.
This was after the switch. This was once the unionized workers went away and the non-unionized workers came in. That gun had been checked and the gun had been cleared because the gun was empty.
If you just look at the concept of like union and non-unionized workers just across any industry at all, right? What that tells me is that if you're in the union, which is supposed to cover like a vast majority of people working in that industry or at that company or whatever it is, and then you have people who like don't join that union, those motherfuckers are just trying to get work. They not gonna be all the way clocked. They gonna be the ones lying on their resumes and all this kind of stuff to get in the door. You know what I mean?
I just need a paycheck.
They are, yeah, like that was, man.
Yeah.
You can see how all this it sucks.
Yeah.
And I want to in this order, I want to give condolences to that woman's family.
Yes. Yes.
And I want to give I want to give a special heart out to Alec Baldwin. Those photos of him on the phone and, after this.
I haven't even seen those.
I already
know how.
Yeah, he's going through it.
Yeah.
And
He's paused every single one. He's not doing anything for a while. He's paused all his projects.
I would too.
yeah, I mean, because it's
Like you killed somebody.
yeah, and
Yeah.
it's literally your fault, and
Yeah.
you replay that moment, and you, like I said, you're the producer of this film, so it's all on you. This whole production is all on you.
Yep.
So even if you're not the one that pulled the trigger, you're still the person that is in charge of this whole
Buck
move.
stops with you.
Yeah, you're the person on top. So not only you're the person on top, you're the one that pulled the trigger.
Yeah, like all that shit.
Like,
yeah,
yo, that's
he's messed up right now.
That's tough. And like I said, I feel bad for anybody who has to deal with that and knowing what his intentions were and how it turned out. That's really tough. But first and foremost, the family of the woman who ended up dying and the person who was injured. I think that first.
Yep.
Yeah.
The second, the famous person and who's still
Secondary.
alive is second, but
Yeah,
the
yeah.
first is the family.
Yeah, because that.
So Mimi, you got a word this week?
Of course, I have a word this week.
What are we in the Z? Are we at Z yet?
We're not at Z. We're at Y this week.
Oh, okay.
Z is on Halloween. I'm so
wow.
excited. I can't wait.
Old Hallows Eve.
And well, we'll get into that next week. Actually, we'll get into that. So the word of the week is yex.
Huh?
Y-E-X. Yex.
You made that shit up.
I did not. How dare you? How dare you?
Is it Yiddish?
Sure. No, I have no idea.
Yes.
Yes.
Part of speech.
It is.
Did
It
you-
is. I guess it's an action. It's an involuntary action, but it is an action.
So it's a verb.
I mean, yeah.
Like I could yex something with somebody.
Well, you wouldn't yex somebody.
I mean,
You
yeah,
would
just-
simply.
I would
You
yex.
would yex.
I would yex.
Is it
You
throwing
would.
up?
No, that's yak.
Um,
Which is a slang word, which I would never use slang if I can help it.
yex. I really have no idea because that junk don't have like no discernible root words.
I need to get away from things with like context clues for y'all to actually make you like to
Yeah.
grind the gears.
Oh,
in your
Yeah.
I
head.
never get into this shit right
Yeah, like
anyway.
you gave us a one syllable word, Y-E-X.
Yeah,
And I'm
yeah.
like, yo, there's
It just sound like a typo.
At first I would have thought like I know hex is like a
To curse somebody.
Yeah.
well then some like a hexagon or something, like sometimes that's a unit of but then I didn't think that was that either.
Yeah, because this starts with Y, not H.
No, I was just saying maybe there's a hidden thing that I didn't know about. So yeah, I have no
I don't
idea.
fucking know.
Okay.
Yeah, that's.
Yex is to hiccup.
Come on, man.
Yeah, she's literally just making this shit up at this point.
Do you know the etymology of that word? I am curious.
I do not, but
What the entire hell? I've never heard that shit before.
look, is right there.
She's like, how am I gonna get him this week?
Oh, see, that's why it's something that them stinky mouth British people be saying, not us.
Oh,
I mean, it is an English word.
So, hi, British people.
Oh yeah, yo! Congrats to y'all for finally getting the government to put fluoride in y'all water, yo. Yo, they like find it distinguished to rot from the outside.
It's
from the inside out.
Of the sugar.
Nah, yo, nah.
The what?
The sugar.
I have a really strong theory that like it's because of like. I mean, you know, besides the fact that like they don't be taking care of their mouth right.
Well,
but,
actually, it does go back to sugar, and it goes back to Victorian or Elizabethan times, because when sugar started coming into the United States, into Great Britain, went to England at that time, as a very high end commodity, it was a sign of your status to have blackened teeth because you were able to have access to sugar.
Well, the founding fathers had terrible teeth.
Well,
like
everyone
George Washington.
back in the day
Everybody
had terrible
had
teeth,
shit.
but that's where the whole like janky teeth.
That makes sense, because like British people are really big on keeping. Well, not all British people. I want to say that too.
Some of y'all have some gorgeous smiles.
There's a certain like part of sect of British culture that I'm talking about.
Looking
I think
at you,
everybody
Jesse
knows.
Nelson.
Go ahead, yo.
Come for him.
That's not
This
what I'm talking
one-
about either.
This one, we didn't say anything. This one here.
I'm talking about the people
Bad boys.
that'll
Good.
believe whatever anything them newspapers over there be saying. The people that like saying stuff like, oh, this person doesn't have blue blood, their blood isn't blue enough, isn't like fucking white supremacy. You know what I'm saying? Those kind of people. Them motherfuckers think that aging in that way is like a distinguished and not like a health issue.
Yeah.
Like they think Prince Philip looked normal before he died, when he didn't think he looked dead for a whole year and a half before he was actually dead.
I mean, to be fair, he was up there in age.
He looked like that for a long time, yo. He looked like there was no soul in there. And he was just like, there's this one picture of him sitting in a car. I don't know, he was leaving some event, and the look he had on his face, I was just like, yo. First thing it made me think of was Weekend at Bernie's. Like, he just looked like there was nothing going on inside of there. And I have a firm belief that, like, when you come from a system that's that, like, fucked up and, like, bigoted to so many people and, like...
And elitist.
Yeah, elitist. When you're that messed up, the shit comes out and manifests itself. And that's my firm belief. And that's why, like, all these, like, real rich, like, noble Brits just be looking like rotten on the outside.
So I disagree with nothing he just said, but I know how you Brits get down. Shouts to Princess Diana. So I'm
Yeah.
not.
First off,
baby girl.
I'm not.
Princess
I'm not,
Diana isn't
She
a
was
Brit
different.
in the way I'm talking about, yo.
She
No,
was
but I'm
there's
just saying how she met her unfortunate end. I'm just how
We're
they.
making him mafia uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Look, man, look.
They're pretty dangerous people.
This is street talk, right? We don't talk street talk.
Look, man,
right?
you say you
Is
try.
that what you talk about?
You always say you can only keep it real. Keep it real.
No,
Who
I'm
gonna
not.
come over here and like?
I'm not. I didn't
The
disagree.
most somebody gonna do is hop in your Twitter mentions if you even use Twitter. You know what I'm saying?
I'm just.
Stay in your lane, Gov. Anyway, thanks for joining us on the show this week.
Does anybody have a bottle of water I can drink?
That's a bit of a whiffle. It's been fun. We'll see you guys next week for Halloween.
Oh yeah.
Wear your costumes. We want to see your costumes, kids.
Yeah. Yo.
Dress up. Keep it lovely.
Have a good night.
Bye.
Y'all.
Oh my God.